The last part of notes, we're going to try to use Desmos to help us find values of functions. And this is kind of a new thing that I've tried with Desmos here. So I'm going to see if we can kind of do this together. We've used Desmos in the past, so it should be a little bit familiar. I've put the link there, the hot link, if you're doing this from the document. And if you're going from a paper copy, then on your iPad, you either need to go to desmos.com or just open up the app Desmos, which I think is even better for the graphing part anyway. But remember, if you go to desmos.com, and I'm just going to do this just to show this, but when you get to desmos.com, then you click on that middle button, the graphing calculator button there, so then it opens up the Desmos graph. But I'm going to actually go to the application. And let's see, I'm going to do a little split screening here. I guess we'll open that up and bear with me for a sec while that opens up. All right, and let's see if we can open up our notes here. All right, a little bit on the struggle here. I'm going to get there. I'm going to get to the split screen. Okay, there we go. All right, so we're going to find the value of a few parts of this function. And so here's that function. Actually, we used it in the last problem. So that's that option B plan, the 10x plus 25. And we're going to start by finding B of 6, B of 2.75, B of 1.482. So we could plug each one of those into the equation. I want to show you, though, how you can use Desmos to kind of make that possibly a little bit faster, but also to graph some points as well. And then we'll drop that into our notes or make a sketch of it. So we're going to enter in a table. Remember, we've done this before. So if you go to the top left, we're going to enter in a table of values here. So we'll do that. And remember, when you open up a table, it's going to put that x1, y1. And we're going to actually change the name of this to function. We're going to actually use the same name as our function. So capital B, parentheses, x. And we're going to put a 1 in there because our x value has that subscript of 1, which is needed on the Desmos table. So instead of b of x will be a b of x sub 1. So if you want to just match that with mine, so you just type that in just like we've typed in the letters before, use the parentheses, get that to match up. And now let's go over and start entering in some numbers. And what we also have to do, actually, now that we're getting into this, let's actually also type the function in on number 2. So click on B2. We're going to do B of x equals 10x plus 25. That's our function, 10x plus 25. All right, I'm actually going to get the view a little bit better here. You guys can feel free to do that as well if you want. So there's that function. All right, so now let's see if we put in value of 6. Excellent. So notice when I put in the value of 6, because we're doing B of 6 first, it automatically calculates what the value would be on the function. All right. And let's do that same thing for B of 2.75. So if I do that, it automatically calculates the value of the function 52.5. And actually, let's write these down as we go, right? So we have B of 6 comes out to 85. B of 2.75 is equal to 52.5. And then what's our third one? B of 1.482, so 1.482. Let's try that again. There we go. Must have typed something different in the first time. Is 39.82. All right, so let's actually see where those are on the graph over here. So we're probably going to take a screenshot of this. So if I drag this over a little bit. All right, so there's the 3 points that it calculated. So there's that point, that point. If you click on each one of those points, because those points are in the table over on the left here, and then the line is the function b of x, and it calculates what the output would be, what the y value would be for each one of the inputs, and gives you that point on the graph. So that's kind of nice. So let's take a screenshot of that and drop it into our notes. Save photos here. Let's go back to our notes, super zoomed in. I don't want albums, I want photos. It's giving me a little bit different view. That's the one I want. Okay. I guess we got to shrink that down a bit to fit. Maybe I could have cropped that a little bit better to be able to view it. But anyway, I'm going to drop that in there. All right. Oh, actually, now I see from my template that I'm actually looking at, I didn't have this, but now I remember I added some space down below here. So there we go. So here's that first screenshot. Now I actually have space for it. Okay. All right, solve the equation b of x equals 93. All right, so that would be kind of the reverse, where you know the output is 93, and we would be looking then for the input. So let's go back into Desmos, or at least split the screen here. And I'm going to exit out of the table because unfortunately the table will not reverse. If we try to put in a output value, it doesn't reverse and tell us what the input value is on the table. So that's kind of a bummer, but let's see if we can figure this out in a different way. So I'm going to delete the table. I'm going to keep the function in there. And then what we're going to do is, okay, you can see the function is graphed, the line, the linear equation is graphed. And so we're just going to type in b of x equals 93, just like we see it in our notes. So b of x equals 93. Okay, now notice what happens here is that we actually get a different line. Right, so this is actually the equation y equals 93, if you want to think about it that way. So we actually have two equations in here, and we're almost thinking of this like a system of equations then. So we click on where those cross. When does the original function, 10x plus 25, equal 93? We click on that intersection, we can see that it happens at 6.8. So x equals 6.8. So this is a different way of solving an equation using sort of the graph, the Desmos graph for it. All right, we solved equations differently earlier in the notes, kind of the more traditional way, kind of like we solved an equation here, and back up on the second page we solved it. And so now we're kind of using Desmos to solve the function. So, all right, let's type in the next one. So b of x equals 42.1. So again, we have to have the original function in there. So that's why the black line right here is in there, so that when we type b of x equals 93, we know where it crosses that. So let's do b of x equals 42.1. So caps b of x equals 42.1. Okay, so down here, again, if you don't see these, you probably have to adjust the window a little bit, but if you click on where that crosses the line, we see that it reaches 42.1 when the input, when the x value input is 1.71. So x equals 1.71. And then let's do the same thing for the last one. So b of x equals 0.25. So that's up here. It's a little higher value. So b of x equals 116.25. That works when x is 9.125. So when the input is 9.125. So we see all three of those solutions. We kind of zoom back out a little bit here. Where the lines, the different output lines, sort of working backwards and figuring out what input it matches up with. So each green, red, and blue line, those are the output lines, and then the function is the black line. So where they cross, if we click on each one of those, we can see what input gives that particular output. So I'm going to go ahead and screenshot this. We're going to drop it into our notes. And actually going to, this time, crop it a little bit here so it fits more easily. And then we'll drop that into our notes down at the bottom where there is space to do that. Okay. So that's a little extra, but we might be coming back to that throughout the unit using Desmos and knowing that we can also graph functions in Desmos, which of course makes sense because functions are oftentimes just a different form of an equation.